As children, the twins would spend hours lying beneath the open sky, turning clouds into imaginary shapes. Andrew proudly pointed one out as a turtle, then another as an apple. Before asking if the next one looked like an ice cream cone, Ava couldn't help laughing. She teased him that it was obviously a whale, and accused him of only thinking about dessert. Andrew burst into laughter after being caught. Then, with genuine curiosity, he asked how she always knew exactly what he was thinking. For Ava, the answer had always been simple. They were twins. She could read him like an open book. Back then, life felt peaceful, and she truly believed those quiet days would last forever. Unfortunately, they didn't. Years later, that peaceful childhood had become nothing more than a memory. Standing inside Ava Moretti's office, Ava desperately pleaded for a chance to prove herself. She wanted to help with the family business. She wanted to study law, become a lawyer, and stand beside Andrew as an equal. She insisted she could do everything her brother could, but Alessandro refused to even consider it. To him, a daughter had no place in the family business. Her only purpose was to remain quiet, marry into a respectable family, and learn how to become a proper housewife. Every dream Ava had was dismissed without hesitation. Realizing there was nothing more she could say, she silently turned and walked away. Outside the office, Andrew caught up to her. He gently grabbed her hand, trying one last time to reach her. He begged her to stop trying to involve herself in the mafia, unlike Ava. He knew exactly how terrifying their father's world truly was, if he had the choice. He admitted he would have run away long ago, but instead of hearing his concern, Ava exploded. Years of frustration poured out all at once. She accused Andrew of having everything simply because he had been born a boy. She told him to stop complaining, calling him pathetic, even though deep down, she already knew none of it was his fault. Andrew had always been kind, always forgiving. She convinced herself she'd apologize later, just like every other time. She believed there would always be another chance. She couldn't have been more wrong. The next time Ava stood before Andrew, he could no longer hear her. His body rested inside a coffin, surrounded by flowers. Behind her, Alessandro coldly declared that Andrew had taken his own life. To him, his son had simply been weak. But Ava couldn't accept those words. She remembered Andrew's desperate plea, his wish to escape, his silent cry for help. Only now did she realize what he had truly been asking for. If only she had listened. If only she hadn't pushed him away. The guilt crushed her, and in that moment, her grief turned into hatred, not toward Andrew, but toward the man standing behind her. In her heart, she branded Alessandro with only one name: murderer. Unable to escape the guilt, Ava stopped caring about herself. One night, at another reckless party, a man named Jimmy approached her. He noticed how miserable she looked, then offered her bad substance, promising they would make all her problems disappear. Ava immediately recognized what he was holding. She knew exactly where that path would lead. Rock bottom, but at that point, she no longer cared. She accepted without hesitation. From that day forward, she buried herself in one meaningless party after another. She wanted to ruin herself, to become someone unrecognizable, because if she destroyed herself enough, maybe she could finally forget who she was. Her self-destructive spiral eventually reached Alessandro. Furious that his daughter's behavior had become public gossip, he dragged her back home to him. She had become nothing but an embarrassment to the Moretti name. He locked her away, determined to force her back into obedience. But Ava didn't resist. Instead, she quietly accepted every punishment. In her mind, this was exactly what she deserved. When Ava finally opened her eyes, she found herself back in her room. Then everything came rushing back. Vincent's words echoed inside her mind. The accusation that Nick Caponelli had murdered Andrew for so long. She believed she had finally escaped the trauma that haunted her childhood. Nick had been the first person who gave her hope for a future. The first person who made her believe life could still be worth living. But now, that hope felt like nothing more than a betrayal of Andrew's memory. If Nick truly was responsible, she swore she would avenge her brother no matter who stood in her way, even if that revenge eventually consumed her as well. Determined to uncover the truth, Ava stepped outside, waiting for her. Was Alec Asnikov? He reminded her of the warning he'd given before. As Ava stared at him in shock, she immediately recognized who he was. Alec simply looked back at her, as though he had expected this meeting all along. Back at his penthouse, Nick sat alone in silence. His head rested in his hands, as the nightmare from the engagement party replayed over and over again. Then Alessandro's cold voice echoed through his mind. The Don had calmly ordered him to leave, claiming he could take care of his own daughter. Nick refused to believe any of it had happened by chance. He confronted Alessandro, demanding to know if the entire incident had been planned, but the mafia boss simply smiled. He claimed to know nothing, then warned Nick that staying any longer would only fuel the rumors spreading through the room, as whispers surrounded them from every direction. Nick's father quietly stepped beside him. There was only one piece of advice. It was a trap. Leaving now was the smartest move. Nick clenched his jaw deep down. He already knew his father was right. The memory faded, but the regret remained. Nick blamed himself for letting his guard down. He should have seen it coming, yet none of that mattered now. The only thing occupying his mind was Ava. He could only hope she was safe before he had another chance to think. His phone suddenly rang. It was Leo. Nick tried to tell him he'd call back later, but Leo immediately cut him off. Ava had disappeared, and she had left with Alec Asnikov for the first time that night. Real panic crossed Nick's face. elsewhere. Alec had brought Ava somewhere far from the chaos. Instead of questioning her, he handed her a firearm and patiently showed her how to practice at a shooting range. He adjusted her stance, told her to loosen her grip, bend her elbows, control her breathing, then squeeze the trigger. The first shot echoed across the range. It wasn't perfect, but for someone who had never handled a weapon before, she did surprisingly well. Alec finally stopped the session. He warned her that pushing any further would only lead to accidents, then invited her to warm up by the fire before the cold night settled in, sitting together in silence. Ava asked how long it usually took to become a good shooter. Alec immediately understood what she was really asking. She wanted revenge, but he told her to forget the idea. Even if she somehow managed to confront her target, she'd be stopped long before pulling the trigger, and even if she succeeded, the Caponelli family would never let her walk away alive. Ava lowered her head. If revenge wasn't the answer, then what was she supposed to do? Alec's response was calm. Nothing she did now would bring Andrew back. Those words shattered the wall Ava had been desperately holding together. Tears finally poured down her face. She confessed that she hadn't been there when her brother needed her most. She couldn't save him while he was alive. How could she simply abandon him again now? The guilt had never disappeared. It had only been buried beneath everything else. More than anyone, she hated herself. Alec leaned in and then made an offer she never expected. If revenge was all she wanted, he could make it happen. All she had to do was say the word, and he would bring Nick's head back to her. Ava froze. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. Could Alec really kill Nick? Before she could answer, Nick burst open the door looking for Ava, confused. She could only stare at him. Nick ignored everything else. He begged her to leave with him immediately, but Alec stepped between them. He warned Ava not to believe a single word Nick said. According to him, the truly dangerous man wasn't standing beside her. It was the man pretending to rescue her. The same man who had tried to marry her, even after supposedly murdering her brother. Nick refused to stay silent any longer. Nick denied the accusation without hesitation. He admitted that Andrew had visited him that night, but he swore he had never harmed him. This time, he wasn't asking Ava to trust him blindly. He promised to explain everything that had happened. If she still believed he was guilty after hearing the truth, he would place his own life in her hands. But Alec immediately dismissed every word. He insisted Nick was lying once again, caught between two men, both claiming to know the truth. Ava's thoughts spiraled into complete confusion.